So in this video, we're going to look at phonology and pronunciation teaching. And for this, we need to use the International Phonemic Alphabet. This is a really valuable resource for teachers and students, and it's really worth becoming familiar with. So what is the IPA? Well, the International Phonemic Alphabet is a presentation of the 44 most distinct sounds of English represented as phonemes, as symbols on a chart. And these 44 sounds are distinct enough that if a learner understands and can produce all 44 sounds accurately, they can listen to and say any word in the English language comprehensibly. So this system is used by teachers and students around the world to work on their pronunciation and to think about differences in pronunciation and the pronunciation of new words using a nice visual tool. The most effective layout of the phonemic alphabet is one designed by Adrian Underhill in his book Sound Foundations, and this is really helpful to differentiate the sounds visually and in production. So we'll see how this chart works now, and I'll also give you some links to Adrian Underhill's YouTube channel, which is fantastic and goes further than I ever could to describe and explain the relationships between the sounds on his chart. So this is the Underhill IPA. And you can see that it's split into different parts depending on the types of sounds which are made when we speak these phonemes. So we have to remember there are three variables which affect the production of sounds of English. We talk about voice, so this is whether your voice box vibrates when you produce the sound. Remember, you can test that by putting your fingers over your throat when you say the sound and seeing if you can feel that vibration or not. We have manner, which is the way in which the sound is produced. For example, is it produced by cutting off the airflow completely, as in a stop, or by the air hissing through the different parts of your mouth, as in a fricative, or other different ways of producing the sounds of English. And finally, we think about the place, the parts of your mouth, the speech apparatus, which is used to produce the sound. So the tongue, the teeth, the alveolar ridge, the velum, all of these different parts of the mouth, which we can use to produce the different sounds. So the Underhill IPA is here again. We're going to run through it, looking at the different sections of the chart and the sounds in those sections. So we can see the chart is split in half across the middle. So the top half of this chart are vowel sounds, that is, sounds which are produced without any blockage of the passage of the air through the mouth. So the speech apparatus kind of gets out of the way, and it's just the shape of the mouth which forms the different sounds of the vowels. At the bottom of the chart, the bottom half, is represented all the consonants. So these are the sounds where the speech apparatus does interrupt the flow of air through the mouth and forms the different sounds, stops, fricatives, nasals, and all of those that we talked about before. So returning to the upper portion of the chart, we can see that that again is split in half, with the left-hand side representing what we call monophthongs, or single sounds. You can notice that on the left, those 12 sounds have just one symbol representing one sound. Now, next to some of those symbols, we have these two little dots, and that is to differentiate long sounds. So these sounds are long. Those two dots denote length in the phoneme. So for example, this sound here is E, which is a long sound, and we can contrast that with I, which is a short sound. Similarly, these two dots on this right-hand one is oo, and that's often contrasted with u. Below that we have which is contrasted with We have or, contrasted with o, and we have which is contrasted with a. So you can hear the difference in the length of the sounds as I make them, and that difference in length is shown when we produce these sounds in words. Quite important. Some languages don't distinguish length of vowel sounds in the same way, so it can be a real challenge, and that's something that's definitely worth working on with certain nationalities or certain first language speakers. On the other side of the chart, the right-hand side at the top, we have these pairs of symbols which go together to form diphthongs. So diphthong means two parts, so two sounds together. which come together and form one vowel sound. So the sounds on this chart are mostly, this side of the chart, are mostly made out of the individual sounds, the single sounds on the left-hand side, but combined together. And so a good way of learning these diphthongs is to learn the monophthongs and put them together, and you'll be able to hear that this first one on the top left of the diphthongs combines I and to make ear, ear. So that ear sound is two vowels which come together as one vowel sound. We're going to talk more about diphthongs on the face-to-face portion of the course, but for now you can learn these sounds by the words that they appear in, isolating them and practicing producing them yourself. Now on the bottom half of the chart here we've got the consonants, and those are organised in a specific way as well. So in the first row at the top of the bottom half of the chart we have stops. Okay, so these are the stops. Remember, stops are formed when the airflow through the mouth is cut off entirely. So either by the lips, as in p and b, by the tongue and the alveolar ridge behind your teeth, as in t and d, or by the velum at the back of your mouth, as in k and g. In between the stops there, we have two sounds which are slightly different. These two sounds are made up of two consonant sounds which are produced together to form what we call an affricate. So these two are the two affricates in English, and those are ch and j. Notice that the phonemes, as they're organised in that row, alternate between voiceless and voiced, voiceless and voiced, and that's another kind of organisational feature of the chart. In the second row down, we have an entire row of what we call fricatives. So remember that fricatives are sounds which are formed by the friction of the air passing through small gaps between your teeth and your tongue and different parts of your mouth. So for example, in f, v, f, v, you can hear a kind of hissing sound behind the voice, or if there's no voice, just sounds a bit hissy, and that's the sound of the air coming through your teeth or between your teeth and your tongue or your lips. So that's that row is called fricatives. And at the bottom row, we have kind of everything else. We've got smaller collections of different types of sounds, such as nasals, sounds which are made by pushing the air down your nose rather than through your mouth. So those are n, and ng, as in the ing sound, ng. On the right-hand side, we have three sounds which are quite important in connected speech. They're used for linking words together sometimes, and these are called glides. So we've got r, w, and y. And then in the middle, we have two other sounds. One of them is not important. It's called an aspirant, which is h, and the other one is a lateral, which is l. They look just like the letters which represent them generally, so they're quite easy. So now you'll be thinking about what sounds you're going to need to remember, or what sounds you're going to need to work on learning. I would suggest that you do a lot of work with your vowel sounds, because they don't look much like the letters which we use to represent vowels. Vowels are kind of tricky in English. We have lots of different sounds associated with the spellings of different vowels, so they're kind of hard to remember. Also, there's a lot of them, and some of them sound quite similar, so definitely worth practicing these. Of the consonants, best to focus on the consonant sounds which don't really look like letters. So many of them look like the letters which produce that sound, and it's quite intuitive. But sounds like ch and j maybe don't look like the English spellings, the ch spelling and the j spelling. So remember those ones. These two are Greek symbols which we use for the th sounds of f and v. These two are different versions of kind of S sounds or SH sounds, which are sh and zh. Worth remembering because they look quite different. Ng is quite easy to remember because it looks like a combination of an N and a G, which is the NG sound, ng, but doesn't look like a letter really. And the one which gets a lot of people is this one, y. English is quite unusual in that we use this letter, or the letter that looks like this phoneme, to produce a j sound. But actually, j is a combination of two sounds. So this phoneme is y. So if you remember, it is similar to German or Scandinavian languages where the letter J is produced as a y sound. That's how we do that in the phonemic chart as well. So a few to learn. The rest of the consonants should be quite easy because they just look like the letters which they sound like. So you can remember those quite easily, I think. Main thing is to practice.